ministers resume office, quite a lot of expectation coming from stakeholders, the president, and even Nigerians. Good morning, and welcome to the Dailies on Echo Television International, where we keep you updated on what is happening on the papers. We're having ministers resuming their responsibility. We're having demolition still taking place in, some illegal building in Abuja, and then we'll be taking you quite through a lot of, stories on the paper this morning. I am Sarah Shadash, and I'll be doing this with Rachel Tansey. Good morning.
Morning, Sarah.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great. I'm fabulous. Thank you so much. You can do well to drop your comment on our Facebook and YouTube channel there, and then we'll just take your comments and see what your own contribution are or your thoughts are concerning the stories of interest to you this morning. And we'll just dive right into the paper. Rachel will be taking us through the Guardian newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, operators unsettled over Tinubu's hold on petroleum ministry. You can find more details on page 6, and then we have a 2022 crude oil export graph showing by value. The listed 15 countries sold 85.3% of globally exported crude oil in 2023. So if you want to find more of the details, get the Guardian newspaper and turn to page 6. Wike to step on toes as Keyamo Umahi others unveil vision for ministries. Serve Nigeria, not region or state, Tinubu charges new ministers. Nigeria's inflation to hit 28% by year end. This is coming from JP Morgan. He is projecting what will be of our inflation before the end of the year. INEC and disturbing threats of November polls. You can find more details on page 2, and that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
All right, let's dive straight into the Punch newspaper. Federal government may raise $17 billion from oil assets coming from JP Morgan. Government to revive Ajekuta Steel Umahi plans road inspection. You can find more of that story on page 20 of the Punch newspaper. Board chairman, MDs buy additional 145 billion naira bank shares. The big story for the Punch, Abuja land. Federal government may revoke land allocations, demolish 6,000 buildings and slums. The writer following the story, illegal buildings must go down, Wike tell ministers, ambassadors, and others. Slums in Nyanya, Apo, Ado, 27 others may be affected, residents beg the minister. So keep our fingers crossed and see how all of these will unfold. Tinubu warned ministers against ethnic politics. Appointees unveil agenda. We're seeing quite a lot of agenda coming from the ministers, and we hope to see that they'll be able to carry out every of these agendas that they have stated out. Still on the Punch newspaper, Ondo teenager confesses taking part in over 40 robberies. It's quite a sad one. You can read more of that on the Human Angle story. I want to reunite with Boko Haram husband, coming from one of the Chibok girls. This must be as a result of trauma, we believe. Well, we hope that something will be done about that and to find out why she wants to reunite with the Boko Haram husband. Navy arrests 10 oil thieves with over 100 jerry cans of oil. You can find more detail of that on page 4, and that's all on the Punch newspaper.
On Leadership newspaper, Taraba Task Force arrests 3,500 illegal miners. Governor Sani slashes fees in Kaduna tertiary schools. You can find more details inside the paper. We have contractors milking federal government through new expatriate quota policy. Adamawa rec petitions, NBA over planned disciplinary action. You can find more details on page 7. The big story on the paper, we have Tinubu to ministers, get to work, Nigerians won't tolerate failure. You can find more details on the front page and continue inside the paper on page 4. Nigeria to raise $17 billion from asset sales, still coming from JP Morgan. Chibok girl to marry repentant terrorist. More details can be found on page 6. We have picture stories showing the president shaking hands with the ministers that have just assumed office. And that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, 77 trillion naira debt may stall Tinubu's economic plan, coming from Manufacturers Association of Nigeria. Gunmen abduct 8 NYSC members on way to camp in Sokoto. Quite a sad one. We hope that the security agents will be able to rescue them back. How PDP governor sent 10 ministerial nominees to Tinubu, coming from Wike. Babies die as women deliver in toilet, says the Benue IDP car manager. We hope something will be done about those living in the IDPs. Quite a very sad story when you see things like this, that those in the IDPs are not well taken care of. We hope something will be done about that. Men in army uniform robbed and killed my aide, Senator Adiola laments. You can find detail inside the paper. Tinubu to ministers. South Nigeria, North region or state, and we have quite a number of writers following that story. You can do well to grab the paper and read that story on page 5. And coming from Niger, we are more likely to use force, coming from the ECOWAS. Well, we're seeing that within the weekend, other countries that are actually already under coup, the likes of Guinea-Bissau, are actually giving their help to the Jutas in Niger Republic. So here ECOWAS is saying they are most likely to use, the ECOWAS. And Richard, is quite a sad one, even though I know we've been talking about the issue of the coup in Niger. And I think during the weekend we saw how a lot of Guinea-Bissau, the country Guinea-Bissau, we've seen Mali, we're also seeing other countries that are under coup actually saying that they will render their help or support to the Jutas in Niger. We're seeing ECOWAS actually saying that they may likely use force. And we remember from the very onward, various West African countries that are under ECOWAS are already, saying that they will give their support to the ECOWAS in relation to that. And we saw where stakeholders, elders, stakemen in the country have been saying that the use of force is not the way forward. Because if we look at the paper yesterday, well, we saw some of the states, Nigeria precisely, that are likely to be affected, the likes of Sokoto, the likes of Borno, the likes of Jigawa, Kanu, among many other, I think about 7 states or so will be affected if something goes wrong. And we're seeing even Nigerians that are also already in the country already complaining about the issue like this. And in as much as a lot of people do not want this to escalate beyond the way it is presently, but if you remember what the conversation we had on Friday, what is the body language of those in Niger presently? And ECOWAS are refusing because the Jutas are saying that they will only hand over power after 3 years. And ECOWAS is saying no. And that was the same thing we had in Mali. They said they will be handing over after 2 or 3 years. And so, with all of these things, honestly, my desire, and I hope that the ECOWAS will actually be very, very careful. I don't know what they request, what the desire is. Of course, we saw some of the reasons the shooters there said, the fact that democracy, governance, bad governance, and the likes of that. And you remember I stated, Richard, I said, it's not just about Niger. Over the year, we've seen that the reason why we always have coup d'etats in countries is as a result of bad governance, most especially in African countries. That is the reason why we see the military saying they will take over. But do they do better is another question we ask. If we're going to compare during the military regime and then during democracy right now, are we going to say there is a difference? Is governance best, as in, is governance actually more better during the military regime or during democracy? And this is, I think, a question that a lot of people are trying to weigh, but we'll just keep our fingers crossed, even though ECOWAS are saying they might likely use force. So we'll just watch out and see how this whole thing unfolds at the end of the day.
I think the ECOWAS should keep going and dialoguing, because force is not the way forward in the first place. Niger is a small country, and the neighboring countries are likely to be more affected, just as we have clearly stated that we have over 7 states in Nigeria that will be affected by whatever is going on in Niger. And also we have Nigerians that are in the country also saying the same thing about what they do not want. Now, of course, we cannot sit down and say, let's allow the junta have their 3 years, because it's not done like that. In the first place, the coup is not acceptable on many bases and all of that. However, the big question also, Sele, is the fact that have the military all done differently. And if we're going to use the cases of the other countries that we have seen, we haven't seen, well, of course, with the military government, people won't protest that much because it's democracy that gives room for that. But the problem, the disadvantage to the military regime is almost always the dictatorship nature of it and the autocratic nature of it, which we have one person taking major decisions. There are no panels enough to, like, we have ministers, we have the House of Representatives, we have lawmakers and all of that. We have few people taking major decisions, and whether we like it or not, it's always sentimental. Now, I believe that ECOWAS haven't exhausted every option available concerning how to go about this junta yet, because there are many, many ways to go about it. Force should be the least. Now, with the fact that we have other countries that have been taken over by military through coup, saying that they are giving Niger support, that it's also a message to ECOWAS that, you know what, force is not the way forward for whatever is happening, but rather going around every other diplomatic means, whatever it takes for you to see that there is force is the least expected. Because if we have these other countries coming in, and whether we like it or not, we have few countries. Nigeria is at the forefront of who will lead this war if it turns out if it ends up at that. So we are in no position to start fighting a war in Niger. We have so much to chew in our country. We have so much on our plate, rather, to chew, and the president is still figuring things around, most especially when it comes to our economy. And so when it comes to war, it takes a lot of the resources of the country. We're still having our soldiers fighting Boko Haram that claim to have more ammunition than them, have more higher grade when it comes to weapon and more firepower, and we are still having that the military is not funded as it should. Now imagine taking up a war when we have a war going on in our country. We might call it insecurity, but it is a war, Sele, because people are being displaced, areas are being destroyed, there is no peace on a daily basis. A lot is going on in the country, so we are in no position, because whether we like it or not, if the ECOWAS should choose force today, Nigeria have to be at the forefront of it. And as it is now, we are not capacitated enough to fight another war in Niger Republic as it is. So for the chairman, which is Tinubu of the ECOWAS, he should go around every other means until all completely all
exhausted.
Exactly before, because we are not in the position as a country to fight a war, and that should be the guiding the guiding principle for what is happening in Nigeria as it is now, because whether we like it or not, it will be Nigeria that will bear the burden of force when it's being used on Niger, and we are not at that position as it is.
You know, as
now.
you're saying we're not in a position, it just brings my mind to the fact that for those times where people give advice to Nigeria, for example, that they should get these terrorists, bandit, headers, let's come to a round table. They should place what is their demand, what do they want. But have we gotten any answer, Rachel? Till date, we're still having issues. Right now, the people, we've seen what is happening. The IDPs in Benue, that's just one state, which of course we have many IDPs across the Federation of Nigeria, and they're not well taken care of. Now the question, a lot of concern that is coming from leaders as elder statesmen in the country is the fact that how sure is ECOWAS that Niger will keep to its part of the bargain? How sure are we that Tijani will hand over to democracy after 3 years? Because he doesn't look like he's joking from the way he's talking. And that is a concern of a lot of people. And I believe that is why ECOWAS is against the 3 years, because it doesn't look like after 3 years they will hand over, just the way it is looking in Mali and Guinea-Bissau, the way things are not really looking very okay right now there. So these are concerns that people are saying. And I think that we have to learn, if in our own country here, we're still having issue with the Boko Haram, we're still having IPOP even coming out to so be a threat to the government as it is presently right now. So just like you said, we have enough on our plates to chew. But I think still it's not out of place. We cannot just pull out of this fight just like that. But just like you said, I hope that we will check all the other alternatives we have. What other option do we have? What would they say they want? Are we sure that the president in Niger is well taken care of? Are we sure, just like you said, it's a one-man gun. When the military take over, you don't have the right to say anything. The press don't even have the right to even, hold the government accountable for whatsoever. So, just like you said, we hope that we'll see better. And then still, Rachel, we're having our ministers. Let's get back to our own country. Our ministers have resumed office yesterday. And quite a lot. I mean, I'm seeing some of the options, some of the things coming out from the various ministers. We are having the likes of the former governor of Plateau State, Lalon, saying decent employment is starting. Wike saying he's going to demolish illegal buildings in the FCT. Quite a number. He's inspecting, the transport sector. And I like the way they are all coming out with so much vibe and trying to. But then, beyond just the words, Nigerians want to see you walk the talk. Results. Because we're tired of the talks. If you ask Nigerians, if you go to the street to ask a lot of questions, they'll say they are tired. But we wish them the best. They are just starting. And of course, Nigerians will likely use their history, look at their background and see how did they lead before, and then how sure Nigerians are that they will do the right thing. But just like we saw the president say that they are ministers of the country, not ministers to their region or ministers to their state. So we hope to see these ministers carrying everybody along in their ministry. Let us see decent employment. Let us see our road transport, talking about transport sector taken care of. Let us see illegal building. Of course, a lot of people will be affected, but then we just hope that they will go about all of these things in a more sensible and an understanding way with the people that are actually living in the slums and these areas and all of that. And I think this is where, like, for example, like this illegal building, it's not just in FCT we're having them in various parts of the country. And you begin to ask questions, how did this person get this land? We're seeing already what the Punch is even saying regarding that the federal government may revoke land allocation. I mean, over the years, you've seen them coming over, all these federal inland revenues coming over, talking about land and mining, coming over to ask you questions, talking about have you paid certain allocation for the land where you are, you have to remit money over and over. So I just hope that beyond all of this vibe we're seeing them starting with, I hope that they sustain this energy. I think that is what Nigerians are concerned, that it's not about starting right, but it's about continuing in the same spirit and then ending well at the end of the day.
Sally, my question to these ministers is that the Minister of Road and Transport knows that it's also his responsible that the roads are safe? Does the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory know that it's also his responsibility that the FCT is safe, that people are safe coming to the FCT and all of that? Does the Minister of Education know that it's not only his responsibility to build schools, but that students are safe? Because I see they are very narrow when it comes to their responsibility. It's not all about not having potholes on the road. It is very important, but even as the Minister of Roads, it's your responsibility to make sure that the roads are safe also, because it's not all about constructing the road. There was once a time in Nigeria that the roads were not constructed as it is now, but people were safe. There was no banditry, there was no kidnapping, there was no all the menace that are happening on the road, and travelers would slowly travel regardless how difficult. People would even spend the night on the road and continue the journey the next day because the roads are safe. But when I see our ministers only talking about demolishing buildings and thinking of houses that they are going to cancel and all of that, and I see it as a very narrow-minded mission, because I'm looking forward to waking up to see a minister talking about the FCT and the benefits that will be. What about the housing plan in the Federal Capital Territory? Over the years, it has become outrageously expensive. Why are you not coming out at the minister and saying, in my regime, housing is going to be much accessible to individuals in the state. I am rolling out a plan that, you know what, people will find living in the FCT more conducive. We will no longer be having abandoned estate. People will be able to inhabit them. We are going to come up with a plan that, you know what, people will be able to live more in the Federal Capital Territory, because one of the reasons we are having all the slums that they are talking about, starting from this Yanya and all of that, is because housing inside the FCT precisely is it's difficult, and then people out there have to live within those areas and they are congested for no reason. Why are you not coming up with such plan? But the major thing on your mind is demolition and all of that, and just road inspection and more of that. When you ask the Minister of Education, what are your plans for the curriculum and all of that, when we are looking at our solid minerals and all of that, what is your plan to see that the government have 70% control of what is happening, all of that, meaning you have to also put the security of the minerals in hand and all of that. It's so much, and I'm looking forward to seeing our ministers being broad when it comes to, because it will be great to see tomorrow that the Minister of the FCT is liaising with Security Ministry of Defense to make sure that the Abuja roads are safe. It won't be bad when you see everybody putting hands together, because whether we like it or not, security has been a problem in this country. And no matter how beautiful a place is, if it's not safe, then the people will dread living in that area and all of that. So I'm looking forward to see our ministers rolling up plans that there will be a synergy in every other ministry, and that's how we will be able to grow. So yes, it's not about the talk, Sele. We are waiting to see results, because it is easy for you to boldly say you will step on people's toes, but are you stepping on the right toes? Are you doing the right demolition, or is it just going to be fueled by I have the authority to do this, or is this plan going to benefit not just the rich and mighty in this territory, but even the masses and all of that? So yes, we'll wait and see. It's too early for us to conclude, but this is us charging them to do the needful, because we know exactly what is the problem and what is needed in Nigeria. And you should be able to, you are in the position, you have the resources to do that, and we are waiting to see the results of your work.
Well, I believe that everybody is actually watching out for
Yes.
that. Well, Richard, that's all on the Vanguard newspaper.
On the Blueprint newspaper, starting with the big story. 1 minute, Sarah. I'm trying to find the Blueprint newspaper. All right. On the Blueprint newspaper, the big story: hit the ground running, prioritize nation's interest and welfare. This is coming from Tinubu to the ministers. The writer says, you are not minister of state, region, or ethnic nationality. I'm ready to step on toes, demolish illegal structures, coming from Wiki. Umahi begins tour of federal roads. You can find details of that on page 22. And 10 million jobs on the way, Humanitarian Affairs Minister assures. We are waiting to see that rolled out, and you can find more details on page 5. And the entire big story, you can find details on page 6. Fuel consumption dropped from 52 million to 39 million liters daily, coming from NMDPRA. Developing choline to boost the Nigerian economy, coming from RMRDC, the body in charge of raw materials in the country. You can find more details on page 30. Still on Blueprint newspaper, we will tell Nigerians truth about government policies and programs, coming from Malagi. The details of his statement can be found on page 6. At the downside of the paper, bandit kidnap nursing mother and 12 others in Bauchi. Kaduna Governor Sani slashes Castle and Nuhu Bamali Poli fees. And you can find the details on page 18. We have Zulum gives 12,200 households palliative at Muna and Ungom. You can find more details on page 18. At the downside, we have airlines race to meet new NCAA guidelines ahead Wednesday's deadline. The detail can be found on page 31. We have picture story showing our ministers being sworn in, and that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
Right on this day newspaper coming from JP Morgan with $4.5 billion debt service, lower the forex position. Nigeria requires sustained reform to attract capital inflows. You can find that story inside the paper. Shetima leads for Board to represent Nigeria at the Rubric Summit. You can find that story inside the paper. Ministers resume office, set agenda and targets. You can read more of that inside the paper. And the president through the cabinet, you are appointed to serve Nigeria, not ethnic or regional interests. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. The picture story here we have is the president and his cabinet, so things will get rolling now that his cabinet is in check. So you can do well to read more detail of that story, and that's all on this day newspaper.
On Daily Sun newspaper, we have as Tinubu inaugurates cabinet, Wike reveals how PDP governors recommended 10 ministers. The writer under the story, President asks appointees to serve with integrity, dignity and deliver on promises. FCT Minister talks tough, vows to restore Abuja master plan, demolish illegal structures. Umahi will not disappoint, coming from Wifuru and Aina. You can find more details on page 6 and 7. Nigeria broke, declares JP Morgan. Find details of that statement on page 3. Federal government comments NDDC on budget process. You can find more details on page 26. Gunmen kill livestock guard commander in Benue. Youth won't be patient when resources are being looted. CSOs warn the federal government. Tuga to unveil new foreign policy vision. The details can be found on page 7. Still on Daily Sun newspaper, Obi denies report of coalition with Kwankwaso and Atiku. At the downside, robbers kill POS operators in Imo. You can find more details on page 4. We have a picture story showing Wike shaking the president. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
Well, I think before we go further with other paper review, we'd love to take a break at this moment so we can take our break, let you chew the stories, drop your comment on our Facebook and YouTube, and when we come back, we continue with the paper analysis. Please stay tuned with us. Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, it's still the Dailies on Network Television International. We've been looking at various stories on the paper. We're looking at stakeholders, the president, Nigerians holding the ministers accountable, reminding them that they are ministers of Nigeria and not ministers to their region or their state or any ethnic group. So quite a lot to charge the ministers to start on the right track. We've seen a lot of them making various promises and what they hope to do, and I believe Nigerians are actually going to hold them by their words, hoping that they will do as they have promised. I still have Rachel Tanzi with me. Thank you so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, please, our viewers, do remember you can drop your comments on our Facebook and YouTube channel. We'll be glad and delighted to see your comment as you contribute to the stories that are on the paper this morning. And let us continue with the paper analysis. I will be looking at the Voice of Liberty. Coming from Zamfara, bandits kidnap 8 NYSC members en route Sokoto camp. And I think, Richard, it's important we talk about this. It's becoming, I think, is it, will I say a ritual, or is it becoming an everyday threat that we hear core members being kidnapped, either
Yes.
while they were going for at their primary place of assignment, on their way to camp,
Yes.
and then we keep recording quite a lot. If they did not die through our roads that are bad,
Yes.
then they are being kidnapped, and it's becoming a rich one. And I think that the government needs to do something about this. You've promised these core members that they will be taken care of, because
Yes.
as it is, I remember back then when I was serving, we're being reminded the fact that we are property of the federal government.
Yes.
So it is expected that you protect everything that belongs to the government. But then sometimes, I don't know, maybe is it our road, and that is why I believe that the ministers need to do more, because of course we can't expect the president to do everything. That is why he has his cabinet members to be there. So I hope more will be done. There were times where we've heard that various states core members are not being sent there because of the issue of insecurity in these various places. Everybody wants to hear that his word is being posted in a place that is safe. But right now it's no longer safe. We're seeing that this happened in Zamfara on their way to Sokoto camp. And these are still the same state we're scared of, that if anything should happen in Niger, these states will be affected. So we are hoping that beyond just words of promises to these core members, we'll see that something more will be done to protect them while they are serving their father's land, because that is what we're all told. We are serving our fatherland. And if you ask me, for a lot of people have come out to say that this should be scrapped, but I don't believe this should be scrapped. I believe this is something that will give you the opportunity to relate with people of another part of the country that you might not be opportune to go. So this service is actually a very right thing to be done. But then we just hope that something will be done to protect the core members while they serve their father's land.
Sela, when the NYSC started, I mean, Nigeria was way better than what it is now. Traveling all the way from the east to the north wasn't as risky as it is now. So in as much as we can't say let the NYSC be scrapped, although there have been suggestions that it should be made optional, that is, people choose whether they go or not. Of course, it shouldn't be scrapped, Sele. It is still very useful to the country as it is, and there are a lot of benefits with it and all of that. But I believe that the NYSC should come up with a better draft and a formula. People don't need to keep going that far anymore. I know that the idea, right, is to mix culture.
Yeah.
But with the way our roots are now, Sele, maybe the culture should be closer in a lot of ways. This is another way that the NYC can go about it, because a lot have been happening, and most of the times core members have been killed. Most of the time we never hear whether these abducted or kidnapped core members are being released, and the trauma for the family, for this person, and all of that, this is something that should bring joy, but over the years have brought sadness to families and core members alike. So they should also know that the responsibility starts from the call up later, because I know when you go to camp, there's much more security. Vehicles are being available for your movement now within the state. But I believe that NYC need to realize that the moment a person have this call-up letter, it is also their responsibility that I just received my call-up letter from Plateau State. It is their responsibility that I arrive in Lagos safe. I believe when they start having that mentality towards core members, perhaps something will be done about transportation that will be safe for core members, that will make it in such a way that nobody is being adopted on the road and due to the process of answering the clarion call to wherever it is that you are being posted. So yes, they should come up with a way, Sele, to reduce the distance covered by core members. And also, I know it's for mixing up cultures and all of that, but the times have changed. Times have changed.
You get to read all about this on the papers, on the internet.
Exactly.
Know how people do things, so you don't have to travel to experience that.
Exactly, Sele. Times have changed, so I believe the NYC also should sit down and change their approach to certain things, especially when it comes to posting core members to states.
So that we are hoping to see that maybe, hopefully, just maybe, hopefully, we see that core members, if from Plateau State I'm going to Calabar, I should be going through a flight and not through road. If you want me to go there,
exactly.
well, let's see that, Rachel. I think it's just a hope and a wish,
Yes.
and we hope the federal government takes that Well, still on the Voice of Liberty, the big story says Nigeria's foreign reserve at an all-time low of $3 billion, U.S. firm J.P. Morgan reveals. You can find more of that. It seems to be making the rounds of most of the papers. Coming from Kano State Tribunal reserves judgment in governorship petition. Federal government to take 133 million Nigerians out of poverty. Ministerial Affairs Minister Betty Edo promises. Well, we hope to see her doing just that. UK count authorized SSS victims to seize $21 million from CBN account with JP Morgan in New York. And the cabinet inauguration, Tinubu charges sworn-in ministers to collectively display trust, transparency, accountability in their new roles. You can do well to grab the paper and read more detail of that story, and that's all on the Voice of Liberty.
On Nigerian News Direct, CAC to delist 10,000 dormant business names incorporated trustees. The big story on the paper, Tinubu's ministers reel out plans, promise to deliver. The writer under the story, as President Tinubu charges ministers to deliver on promises and be accountable. I will ensure responsible utilization of marine resources to tap 1.5 trillion naira blue economy, a statement coming from Ayetola. Wike reads Riot Act to cattle owners, hints on demolition of illegal buildings. Tijani seeks to create opportunities to bolster gains of digital economy. You can find more details of all the minister's statements on page 3. On student mobilization, UNICAL sets up panel to investigate extortion. Shetima departs Abuja for Johannesburg to attend BRICS summit. Nigerians consume 16.8% less petrol in July, a report coming from NMDPRA. Soldiers killed, my aide Yayi alleges. You can find details on page 3. LCCI calls for institutional reorganization in NNPCL and the CBN. You can find more details inside the paper, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
On the Metrics newspaper, JP Morgan estimates Nigeria's net external reserve to be around $3.7 billion, with the writer 8 far lower than CBN's figure. You can find more inside the paper. And then looking at the 2023 WWC, Super Falcons rank the 10th best team. You can do well to actually appreciate our Super Falcons. They have been doing well representing us when it comes to the sport there. Merging talks with Atiku and Kwankwaso. Half of the things you are hearing are rumors coming from Peter Obi, the presidential candidate for the Labour Party. Working alliance with the political party, very true. That is very possible. Unisa Tanku, the Labour Party spokesman, is saying. You can do well to read more of that inside the paper. Tinubu's ministers talk tough. The writer under say panic in Abuja as Wike vows to bring down houses distorting Abuja master plan. Edun charges finance ministry staff to ensure Tinubu's economic reform and work. And then we're having the health minister kick against medical tourism. And then Adelibu pledges stable power supply. Well, we hope to see that. And we hope that the health minister don't just kick against that, but will do something to make sure that our health sector is well taken care of so that Nigerians don't have a need to actually travel abroad for checkup. NAFDAC raised alarm, says expired stolen product finding way back into the market. That means they have to be an agency that have to monitor how this product gets to go back to the market. NIPCO targets more investment in downstream sector for business lovers. Do well to read more of that inside the paper. MTN Nigeria runs to capital market for 100 billion naira commercial paper. Gunmen kidnap 8 NYSC members on their way to camp. And we have NADDC commences solar-powered electric vehicle charging station in the UNN. You can find more of that story inside the paper, and that's all on the Metrics newspaper.
On New Telegraph, oil-producing states got 193.99 billion naira in the first half of 2023 amid decayed infrastructure. JP Morgan puts Nigeria's net reserve at $3.7 billion. This is still on our Forex, and you can find more details on page 25. The big story on New Telegraph, Tinubu to ministers, you are to serve Nigeria, not regions or state. More details can be found on page 2, 5, and 6. Still on New Telegraph newspaper, gunmen abduct 8 Sokoto-born NYSC members, driver along Zamfara Road. Hunger, Nigeria's biggest challenge, now coming from Kyari. You can find the details of his statement on page 5 and 6. At the downside of the paper, we have a study that says singles and pneumonia shots may lower Alzheimer risks. You can find more details on page 26, and that's all the news on New Telegraph newspaper.
Well, we hope, as Gary is saying, that hunger is Nigeria's biggest challenge now. We hope they will do something about that. Rachel, 5 billion naira to every state. We read that on Friday. About 185 trucks of grains will be sent across the federation. I don't know if that's landed in our various states, but I hope that when it lands, over the weekend, I just tried. I was trying to analyze it, and let's take Plateau State for instance. If we are having, let's say, the population of Nigeria for Plateau State, is let's say 5 million. Which I know is not up to 5 million in Plateau State, but let's say 5 million. And then 5 billion naira is being given. That is to say, Richard, that everybody can get a million naira and we still have extra. Everybody can get that much. So imagine a household, if you're about 5 and everybody has 1 million, that means you have 5 million naira. And then let's say these grains, I think it's the grains that might be a challenge, because we're having 5 trucks of rice, and then about how many bags will be sent to a state?
Each truck is at most 600
bags
of
yes.
rice.
So if you take the 600 bags and then plus you multiply by those 5 trucks, and then you send it to 36, including the FCT, 37, and then maybe in a state you had maybe just 29 bags or 29.
No, it's 5 trucks to each state, Sele.
All right, 5 trucks to each state. Okay, that was what makes it 185 trucks.
Yes,
so yeah,
exactly.
Thank you for actually bringing my attention to that. So
yes.
If no matter how you shared, Richard, in a house, maybe it's just a measure of rice that we get
up to that.
But just let's say you get a measure of rice and then you're able to get 5 million. Do you know what you can do with that, Richard? If only we have leaders that will be accountable and will say that, you know what, I do not want to deny these people the privilege of that, because believe you me, even the senator representing Plateau State will collect this money.
They will.
The member representing us in whatever local government will collect this money. Let's forget that they have their own share. But this is just an eye-opener, not to say that our leaders are greedy, but just to tell them that a lot of people are hungry. And, on my way coming to work today, the commercial car I use, and he was kind of worried. He was like, the road is dry. No market. I was like, of course, people have resolved to trek into work. How many people can afford to even use the commercial car to work?
Very few.
A lot of people that even car owners have parked their cars at home or even at work. Whenever I get the money, then I fuel the car, because you will end up using your entire salary to fuel your car. So quite a lot is happening, but I just hope, Rachel, that something will be done about that. And we hope that when this money gets to the various states, it's a plea to our leaders to please let the poor breathe. Give them this money. They deserve it. They need it. A lot of things are happening to people. We are seeing that suicide is beginning to be an option for people because of heartbreaks and things that people cannot even afford. So I just hope that our leaders will know that people are really in need and they will do the right thing.
Yes, Sele, when you look at how things, of course, when it comes to these bags of rice, Sele, it has to really be the poorest of the poor. Everybody can't get it, looking at the quantity and all of that. But yes, when it comes to how much the state is giving, in as much as there are a lot of factors involved when it comes to, we clearly see that some part of it is a loan, some part of it is a grant. For whatsoever reason the government had to put it that way, if we are to have selfless leaders truly, so that people will benefit from this income. I mean, we'll be able to benefit from this palliative. So it's just for us to wait and see what the Plateau State government is going to do with this money. Are we going to see transparency and accountability? And are we going to see a government that truly are concerned about the hardship that is going on in the country and are truly really ready to be selfless and put this money out there? I think that's what matters. And of course, we're waiting to see have every state gotten this palliative, because it's one thing for the federal government to say we are disbursing fund, then it's another thing for these states to say they've gotten it, and if they are getting it, is it in full? Because another problem is that sometimes these funds don't arrive completely as the government has promised. Are these 5 trucks coming once and for all, or are we going to hear that okay, 2 trucks have arrived, and before the remaining 3 arrive, it's another 3 months down the road, and people are waiting, will it arrive, will it not arrive? The same thing for the 5 billion to each state. Are the state government receiving it all at once? If they are receiving it all at once, then I believe it gives the government room to have a formula at once and make sure that its citizens have access to this palliative. So we'll wait and see. We will keep having faith in our government, Sele, because we've elected them, we've put them in the position. It's just unfortunate that time over time they have disappointed us, but these are new administrations in most states in the country, up from the presidency down to the state level. This is a new administration, and we are rooting for them to do well, and that's what we'll wait and see concerning these palliatives.
Well, our fingers are crossed concerning that. Let's take a look at the first newspaper. Tinubu to ministers serve Nigeria, not your states. You can find detail of that story inside the paper. The big story say, I will demolish houses, step on toes. Wike warn FCT resident. Says all illegal structures in Abuja must go down regardless of ownership. I got PDP leaders' approval to accept Tinubu's ministerial appointment coming from the former Rivers State governor. And also we have how I carried out over 40 robberies before age 16 coming from the suspects. Well, I hope that this young person will actually go through a lot of, maybe training, and then Nigerian government can actually use the let us have you, work in the army if you have this skill, because we need to tap into these skills. Yeah. And I think we hope to see the government will do that.
And it's just unfortunate that he will be a juvenile case up till now. This person can't be charged in the court or sentenced. So I just hope that how our correctional system doesn't affect how the juvenile system is, that truly there is a better system that will be able to shape such young people, because for a 16-year-old, before getting to 16, be faced in a situation like this person was a minor that was obviously not in the position of making a decision for themselves. This is probably due to influence way above this person's age, drawn into such a lifestyle. So I'm really hoping that our correctional system, when it comes to the juvenile delinquencies, are way better than what we have in the normal correctional system that we have. We just hope that there is a system, a system that is structured in a way that somebody like this will be able to come out a better person at this very young age than a system that doesn't have that kind of support. And even if it's not, I believe that someone out there in the position is listening and knowing that something needs to be done when it comes to the juvie in this country, that a 16-year-old like this don't become a hardened. This age can still be shaping into somebody better, and I just hope that is
just like you said, we hope that it's not the same as the normal correctional center where he or she will end up wasting his entire youthful age, and then you realize that before the person is out of prison, maybe he's about 50 or 60, and he cannot be useful to Nigeria. Well, we hope to see that. Still on the first newspaper, we're seeing Peter Obi's coalition plan against Tinubu, pipe dream, satanic, coming from Ohanize Indibo, as Labour Party flag bearer tells the party loyalists that of what an hour are, so that's talking about the rumor that they are not actually joining hands together with anybody. Coming from the education minister, I will walk like a bricklayer. We hope to see you doing that. Why Tinubu assigned me solid mineral ministry, coming from Alake. You can find more of that story in the paper. Nigeria's net forex reserve likely to fall to $3.7 billion at the end of 2022, says JP Morgan. Federal government determined to lift 133 million Nigerians out of poverty. And then we have Tourism Minister kneels before Tinubu after signing oath of service. We hope to see this going beyond just the body language, but that you will relate it to your work. My appointment not by mistake, says Kiyamo. We hope he does better right now. Regularize outstanding tax return or face persecution, FRS warned shipping companies. Yes, it was actually the date for paying VAT according to the FRS, so they're actually warning shipping companies to remit their tax. Soldiers rob and kill my aide, Senator Yaya alleged. You can find more of that story inside the paper, and that's all on First News newspaper.
On Daily Independent, Wike vows to pull down illegal structures in Abuja. How federal government will ensure stable, accessible power supply by Adelabu. You can find more details inside the paper. The big story, telecom operators lose over 6 million subscribers in 6 months. Record 785 billion naira as capital expenditure in 2022. Suspended Adamawa rec petitions NBA over planned disciplinary action. Kano governor receives youth protesting alleged attempt to bribe election tribunal. I chose solid mineral ministry, have passion for it, coming from Daily. Alake says aside oil, solid minerals is Nigeria's next growth factor. True to that, and we hope that you champion that growth. You can find more details on page 6. Fabemi warns Justice Ministry staff against insubordination and laxity. Ayatollah pledges ministry will tap from sector's $1.5 trillion yearly worth. You can find more details on page 6. Still on Daily Independent, Tinubu to ministers prioritize nation's interests above state, says Nigerians expect them to be transparent and accountable. Edun assures Tinubu's economic reforms pain will soon fade away. You can find more details on page 7. We have Lalong vows to tackle labor dispute and ensure decent working conditions. More details can be found on page 6, and that's all the news on Daily Independent.
On the Daily Times newspaper, Deputy Speaker flirts novel idea on road development in Nigeria. You can find more of that story inside the paper. The big story, I will step on toes, demolish buildings no matter who owns them, Wike vows. Job scammers duped the victims of 765 million naira in Delta 5 NAP. That is why we have to be careful when you see any job. You have to verify, be sure of the app, be sure of what, because over there we've seen that a lot of people have taken advantage of these apps, and that's why sometimes you hear custom coming out to say there's no any job recruitment. We see the Nigerian police coming out, there's no any job recruitment. You have to be careful of all of these scammers that will scam you. We're still having the issue of the federal character still there, it's still on that probe. Things are not going well over there. So people have to be careful. In as much as you're desperate to get a job, you have to be careful of the website you use, of the location being given to you, because over there people have been used as victims of rituals because he fell victim of all of this. And so we have to be careful, especially this goes to our youth who are desperate for a greener pasture. It might not look green from where you stand. It might actually be dry, so we hope something
exactly, Sele, you just used the right word, and it's called desperation. Like, we are desperate in Nigeria. The truth is, no legit job comes with you paying a fine before getting that job. It's usually you submit to your application, then you're being called for an interview, another interview, then you've been given, be it online or an offline opportunity. But I feel Nigerians are desperate to be employed. And of course, there are a lot of factors around that. You can't fault a person for being desperate. We need to make ends meet at the end of the day. But we should be wise. This is what it means for you to be educated. This is what it means for you to have common sense, that you're not supposed to pay anything before you are being, first of all, where is this job offer coming from? Is it from a legit, prestigious, well-known site? You are supposed to do your own homework, but we don't. We get carried over by flashes offers of getting job that you're being paid hourly, give this and get that. Is not right, and it's still not right up till today. You're not applying for school that you're asked to give acceptance fee or to buy the form. This is job, and it's not done like that anywhere. So we should stop being desperate, and even if we're being desperate because that might fuel the fire to get a job, but we should be wise. It should show that you are educated and you went through school, not that school went through you the other
Rachel,
way.
I love the way you use the sentence, that means to show that you went through school. Somebody
Yes,
once said that that you must have the sense before you have the common sense.
exactly.
So it's just sense. If
It's
you have
just
sense,
sense.
you should
True,
do the right
true.
thing. Well, still on the Daily Times, we have increased allowances to your wives coming from the AIG. You can find more of that story inside the paper. Armed robbers kill retired corp and wife. That's the sad one. You can find more inside the paper. Tinubu swears in ministers. You can find that on page 4. And we're also having on the subsidy removal by Yelsa pay wage reward to workers. You can find that story on page 5. And that's all on the Daily Times paper.
On Punch Sports Extra, the big story, it's time to deliver. Nigerian star walk tightrope in UEFA Champions League as they seek to qualify for Europe's top club competition in group stage. We have Coach Want Osimhen to defend more. We have Auburn pleased with Spurs offer. We have United confirmed Greenwood exit. I no longer gamble coming from Tony. Good for you. You can find more details on page 4. At the downside of the paper, we have Cav Finidi silent on bench ban. Joshua Wilderboot nearly finalized, says Han. You can find more details on page 7. We have Palace 0-1 Arsenal. 10-man Gunners edge Brave Eagles. You can find more details of the outcome of the match inside the paper, and that's all the news on Punch Sports Extra.
All right, let's round it up with the Business Day newspaper. JP Morgan shock reveal put Nigerian forex reserve at $3 billion. Federal government expects $17 billion from asset sales. You can find more of that. You can see the bar chart here showing the CBN external reserve total liabilities. Naira fall, others knock 2,761 of dollar millionaires lease. And we have quite a number of stories on the front page of the paper, so you can grab the Business Day and read any story that is of interest to you. Thanks so much, Rachel, for doing this.
You're welcome, Sarah.
And thank you to our viewers, our supporters. Thank you to the crew members, the general manager, and also to the Echo executive. Until we come your way again, to have a blessed day ahead.